Okay, let's just state the strategic conclusion right up front. Everything else we're about to discuss really hinges on this one single realization. King Croesus of Lydia, the man famous for his incredible gold. He has to be completely reevaluated. We need to stop looking at him as just some, wealthy ancient monarch and see him for what he really was, humanity's first true system architect.
Finally.
Yes.
Yes. We are moving past the fairy tale version of history and getting into the actual mechanics.
Exactly. This is not a history lesson about a rich king. It's a case study on the survival of wealth. Because if you look at the source material, the survival of wealth depends entirely on one thing, verification. Croesus didn't just get rich. He injected verifiability into the very concept of value. He fixed a fundamentally broken economic system.
He fixed the value hash. Let's just call it what it is. Before Croesus, the economic hardware of the entire known world was running on corrupted data. He didn't just mint coins. He engineered a technical breakthrough. He established the value hash of assets.
And that is the lens for this deep dive. We're looking at a chronicle of what we call the verifiability war. Because before this intervention, the world was wasting an incredible amount of energy just trying to distinguish the fake from the real.
Which is an insane waste of processing power. I mean, if you have to spend 50% of your energy just verifying that the money in your hand is actually money, you have zero bandwidth left for trade or expansion. Croesus redirected that energy.
So we have a clear roadmap. We're going to unpack the tragedy of Electrum, which was the chaotic state of the world before this protocol. We'll look at the data cleaning that happened at the Sardis refinery, the invention of what was basically the first full node, they called it the touchstone, and finally how all this connects directly to the modern Bitcoin network.
It is the same war, just different weaponry. Let's get into the chaos.
Let's do it. We have to go back to the 7th century BC, to the Pactolus River. This is where it all starts. The Lydians had this natural alloy, electrum, a mix of gold and silver they were just pulling out of the riverbeds.
And it was a complete disaster. They were trying to build an economy on an opaque asset. The source material calls this a lemon market of trust.
Explain that concept. Why was natural electrum a lemon?
Data asymmetry. It's that simple. Think about it. You have a nugget of electrum. It looks shiny. It's yellow. But inside that nugget, the silver content could be anywhere from 10% to 30%. You literally cannot tell just by looking at it. But here's the kicker. At that time, gold was 10 to 13 times more valuable than silver.
So even a slight variance in that alloy mix
means a massive fluctuation in actual value. Massive. If I hand you a coin and you don't know if it's 70% gold or 90% gold, you are taking a huge risk.
And this creates that friction we mentioned, the lemon market.
Right. Sellers might know the quality or they just pretend to. Buyers have absolutely no idea. So sellers have to raise their prices because they're afraid of getting paid with bad coins. Buyers hesitate because they're afraid of overpaying for diluted metal. It is total paralysis.
The analysis here calls it traffic latency. I love that term applied to ancient economics.
It's perfect. Every single transaction required 2 extra painful steps: suspicion and measurement. You couldn't just buy the bread. You had to argue about the coin. You had to weigh it, squint in the color. That is network latency. It slowed down the entire economic operating system of the Mediterranean.
And it gets worse. It wasn't just nature causing all this noise. The source material points out that the state itself, the early Lydian monarchs before Croesus, were actually the source of the noise.
This is systemic theft.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. The data shows that early Lydian coins had a gold content of what, about 54 to 55%. But natural electrum from the river usually averages around 73% gold.
Wait, so the kings were debasing it on purpose?
They were taking a 15 to 20% cut. They called it seigniorage. I call it corrupting the database. The state was injecting noise into the signal to profit off its citizens. So you have natural variance plus government corruption. No wonder the system was broken. The value hash was completely unstable.
Enter Croesus. The year is around 560 BC. He looks at this complete mess, this traffic latency, and he doesn't just try to regulate it. He engineers a solution from the ground up.
He built a refinery. But don't think of it as just a factory. Think of the Sardis refinery as a data cleaning center.
Right. This is Sector PN at the Pactolus North. The archaeology is fascinating. They weren't just melting stuff down. They had a specific chemical process. Cementation.
It's a brute force attack on impurities. They took the electrum and hammered it into these thin foils. Why? To maximize the surface area. Then they layered these foils in earthenware pots with salt, just basic NaCl and brick dust.
And then they just cooked it.
For days. They heated it to between 600 and 800 degrees Celsius, and this is where the magic happens. The heat makes the salt release chlorine gas. That gas attacks the silver in the alloy, turning it into silver chloride, which then gets absorbed by the pot itself.
Leaving behind.
Pure gold, 99% pure. They successfully separated this variable, messy alloy into two distinct, clean data sets, pure gold and pure silver.
And this is the exact moment the noise was removed from the economic system.
Completely. Before this, money was an estimate. After this, money was a standard. He created a predictable unit of data.
But having pure metal isn't quite enough, is it? You have to communicate that purity to the market. You need to prove it.
Which brings us to the digital signature.
The famous seal of the lion and the bull.
Most historians look at that coin and see art. Oh, look, a lion fighting a bull. How poetic. No, it is a value hash. The lion represented authority, the dynasty. The bull represented universality, strength.
Yeah. So it was a message.
It was a systemic guarantee. The stamp effectively said, do not doubt this data. It was certifying the weight and the purity, and you have to look at the reverse of the coin. Those two INQ squares.
The punch marks.
Those are block headers. They prove the physical integrity of the minting process. They show that the metal was struck with enough force to be solid all the way through.
And the impact on transaction speed must have been incredible.
Instantaneous. Because of this visual standardization, traders could just verify the signature. They didn't have to investigate the counterparty. They didn't have to wonder if the guy selling wheat was a scammer. They just had to trust the signature on the coin. It eliminated the lemon market friction overnight.
But here is where it gets really, really interesting. And this is where the system architect designation really fits. Croesus didn't just ask people to trust him. He gave them a way to verify it all for themselves.
This is the most critical part of the entire protocol, the touchstone.
The Lydian stone.
A black, silicious stone.
It was a tool for decentralized verification. A merchant could carry this little stone in their pocket. If someone handed them a gold stater, they would just rub the coin against the stone. It leaves a streak. You compare the color of that streak to a known standard sample streak.
If the colors match, the purity is verified.
Exactly. And philosophically, this is identical to running a full node in the Bitcoin network.
That is a big comparison. Let's unpack that for a moment. Think about what a Bitcoin full node actually does. It lets a user verify all transactions against the protocol rules on their own hardware.
Right.
They don't have to call a bank and ask if a transaction is valid. They check it themselves.
And the Lydian merchant?
They verify the purity, the 99% protocol, against the rules on their own stone. They don't have to run back to the king's palace to ask if a coin is real. The authority to verify moved from the center, the king, to the edge of the network, the merchant.
Don't trust, verify.
It's the exact same principle. The touchstone made everyone an auditor of the system. And technically, the streak test is a primitive zero-knowledge proof.
Because you verify the integrity of the asset without destroying the data itself.
Right. You don't have to melt the coin down to know it's gold. You prove it without revealing the private key, so to speak.
In an era wasting energy telling fake from real, Croesus redirected that energy to trade and expansion. Are you still wasting energy verifying opaque assets?
That is the question, isn't it? If your wealth requires you to constantly check if it's real, or if some government has debased it, you're losing the war before you even start.
Let's talk about the architecture of the exchange itself. Because Croesus didn't just purify the metals, he fixed the relationship between them, the bimetallic architecture.
The exchange protocol. He mathematically fixed the ratio. One gold stater weighed 8.1 grams. One silver stater, 10.7 grams.
And the exchange rate was locked?
One gold stater was worth exactly 10 silver staters. Fixed.
That seems simple now, but was that revolutionary then?
It was the first time in history that an exchange rate between two assets was mathematically fixed by the system. It wasn't floating based on how the market felt that day. It was hard-coded into the protocol.
And he didn't just stop at the big coins. The source mentions denominations all the way down to 196th of a stater.
Micropayments. He was building a protocol for the entire economic layer, not just for, buying castles.
Yeah.
196th of a stater is like the Satoshi units in Bitcoin. It allowed the currency to be used for daily transactions, buying bread, paying wages.
And this must have created huge network effects.
Massive. Because the traffic latency dropped to zero, Sardis became the economic hub of the world. Money finally transitioned from being jewelry, something you just hoard and look at, to a unit of data that transmits value instantly.
And this protocol was so robust that it survived the fall of the empire itself. This is the Lindy effect section of our analysis.
Right. The Lindy effect says that the life expectancy of an idea is proportional to its current age. Croesus's protocol scored a 99%.
Lydia fell to Cyrus the Great of Persia in 546 BC. Usually, when a kingdom falls, its currency vanishes into dust.
But not this time. The protocol conquered the conquerors. Cyrus and later Darius I of Persia, they adopted the exact same standards. The Persian Daric was essentially a copy-paste of the Croesus protocol.
Why? Why not start their own?
Because it worked. Efficiency wins. You don't throw away a superior operating system just because you conquered the IT department.
Yeah.
The standard of high-purity metal lasted 2,500 years. The drachma, the denarius, the gold standard, they are all direct descendants of the Sardis refinery.
But, and there is always a but in these deep dives, the system was not perfect.
No. It had a single point of failure.
The king.
The king. Croesus was a visionary, but the system still relied on the physical integrity of the mint, which was controlled by a central authority. And history shows us that kings, well, they eventually get greedy. They start debasing the coins again to fund wars. They reintroduce the noise.
Which brings us to the final evolution, the Croesus project being finalized by Bitcoin.
This is where we connect all the dots. Bitcoin is doing exactly what Croesus did, but it removes the physical limitations and, most importantly, the central authority.
Okay, let's break down the algorithms.
Okay, so Croesus used cementation and salt to refine gold. Bitcoin uses proof of work to refine data. It expends massive amounts of energy to filter out the fake blocks, just like the furnace filtered out the silver.
I buy in bull seal.
Replaced by SHA-256. The hash function ensures immutability. You cannot fake the seal on a Bitcoin block. It's mathematically impossible.
And the touchstone?
The ultimate touchstone. Tens of thousands of nodes verifying the entire ledger in real time. But here is the key difference. In Lydia, you still had to trust that the king wouldn't raid the mint. In Bitcoin, the architecture of trust is moved to pure code. There is no king.
The code is the king.
The code is the law. It eliminates that single point of failure entirely. It is the completion of the project started 2,500 years ago.
So to summarize, Croesus wasn't just a guy with a lot of gold. He was a system architect who solved information asymmetry.
He realized that for wealth to survive, it must be verifiable. He saw the chaos of the lemon market, and he engineered a way out.
And the spirit of those engineers in Sardis sweating over the furnaces, separating gold from silver.
That spirit lives on in the computation of every modern node validating the blockchain. It is the same quest. The quest for a perfect signal without any noise.
It really changes how you look at the history of money. It's not about shiny rocks. It's about protocols.
It is about the asset move.
Yeah.
We are witnessing the rebirth of the dream for perfect value transfer.
So here's the final thought for you to carry with you. We've talked about the survival of wealth. We've talked about the enormous cost of verification.
Ask yourself this. Are you holding assets that require suspicion? Are you holding value that depends on a counterparty promising they're good for it? Or are you holding assets that run on a verifiability protocol? Because history shows that eventually the noise always destroys the unverified.
That's the reality of the verifiability war.
Choose your side.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Asset Move Chronicle.
Verify everything.
We'll see you next time.